March 2024, the prestigious Whitmore and Associates auction house in Boston received a collection of Victorian-era photographs from the estate of Margaret Ashford Hamilton, the last surviving member of one of Boston's oldest banking families. Among the dozens of sepia-toned images was a formal family portrait from 1902 that would soon become the center of a disturbing historical investigation. Dr. Sarah Chen, a photography authenticator specializing in turn-of-the-century American portraits, was commissioned to assess the collection's value for insurance purposes. The Ashford family portrait initially appeared unremarkable, a typical example of Edwardian formal photography featuring patriarch William Ashford, his wife Catherine, and their 19-year-old daughter Eleanor posed in their Beacon Hill mansion's ornate parlor. The composition followed standard conventions of the era. The family arranged in a triangular formation with expensive furnishings and elaborate wallpaper visible in the background. Eleanor, seated between her parents, wore an elegant white silk dress with intricate beadwork, suggesting the photograph commemorated a special occasion, likely her recent engagement to Charles Morrison, son of a prominent railroad magnate. Under routine magnification, however, Chen noticed something that made her breath catch. Eleanor's left hand, resting gracefully on her dress, appeared unnaturally pale and stiff compared to every other element in the photograph. While her face showed the healthy flush of youth and her right hand displayed normal skin tone and natural positioning, her left hand looked almost porcelain white and held in a rigid, unnatural pose. The anomaly was subtle but unmistakable to Chen's trained eye. After 30 years of authenticating historical photographs, she had never encountered anything quite like it. Chen.'s initial examination revealed several troubling aspects of Eleanor's left hand that defied conventional photographic explanation. The hand appeared not only unnaturally pale but also seemed to lack the subtle shadows and highlights that should have been present given the portrait's lighting conditions. The photograph had been taken by Harrison Brothers Studio, one of Boston's most prestigious photography establishments, in 1902. Their equipment records, preserved in the Boston Public Library's archives, showed they used large format cameras with consistent, professional lighting techniques that produced uniformly high-quality results. Spectroscopic analysis confirmed the photograph's authenticity. The paper, chemicals, and aging patterns were all consistent with 1902 silver gelatin processing. There were no signs of retouching, composite work, or manipulation that might explain the hand's unusual appearance. Under high-powered magnification, every other detail in the photograph showed perfect clarity and natural skin tones. William Ashford's hands, clasped behind his back, displayed normal coloring and texture. Catherine's hands, folded in her lap, showed the expected variations in tone and shadow. Even Eleanor's right hand, visible at her side, appeared completely normal. Photography experts from Harvard's Visual Arts Department were consulted. Dr. Michael Stevens, who specialized in early 20th century portrait techniques, examined the image for 2 weeks. His conclusion was unsettling. The photograph shows no technical flaws or signs of manipulation. The lighting is consistent throughout the image. The anomaly in Eleanor's left hand cannot be explained by any photographic process or equipment. Limitation of the 1902 period. The mystery deepened when Chen discovered the photographer's original notes in the Harrison Brothers Studio archives. The session had been scheduled for April 15, 1902, but the final notation indicated it was completed 3 weeks later than planned. Research into the Ashford family revealed a complex picture of wealth, social prominence, and carefully guarded secrets. William Ashford had built his fortune in Boston's banking industry during the Gilded Age, establishing the Ashford Trust Company in 1885. By 1902, the family was among Boston's social elite, with connections to the city's most influential families. Catherine Morrison Ashford came from equally prestigious stock. Her father had made millions in railroad construction. The marriage between William and Catherine in 1880 had been celebrated as a union of two of Boston's most powerful financial dynasties. Eleanor Ashford was their only surviving child, born in 1883. Society pages from the Boston Globe described her as one of the season's most accomplished young ladies, noted for her musical talents and philanthropic work with the city's orphanages. Her engagement to Charles Morrison Jr. in early 1902 was heralded as the social event of the year. However, medical records from Massachusetts General Hospital, located through genealogical research, revealed troubling information about Eleanor's health during the months preceding the photograph. Hospital admission records showed Eleanor had been treated for a severe nervous condition in March 1902, requiring a 3-week stay under the care of Dr. Jonathan Whitfield, a specialist in what were then called female disorders. The timing was significant. Eleanor's hospitalization occurred exactly during the period when the family portrait session had been postponed. Dr. Whitfield's private patient notes, discovered in Harvard Medical School's historical archives, described Eleanor as suffering from episodes of cataleptic rigidity and periodic loss of sensation in her extremities. Most disturbing was Whitfield's final notation: patient discharged against medical advice. Family insists on proceeding with social engagements despite continued symptoms. Eleanor's engagement to Charles Morrison Jr. represented more than a romantic union. It was a strategic merger between two of Boston's wealthiest families. Charles Morrison Sr. controlled vast railroad holdings throughout New England, while William Ashford's banking empire provided the financial infrastructure for major industrial expansion. Society records revealed that the engagement had been announced with unusual haste in February 1902, surprising many in Boston's social circles who had expected a longer courtship period. Wedding preparations proceeded at an equally rapid pace, with the ceremony scheduled for June 1902. Just 2 months after the family portrait was taken. Charles Morrison Jr.'s private correspondence preserved in the Morrison family papers at CUA, the Boston Historical Society, provided insight into his relationship with Eleanor. Letters from early 1902 showed genuine affection and excitement about their upcoming marriage. However, his tone changed dramatically in letters written after March. In a letter to his Harvard classmate dated April 10, 1902, Charles wrote, "Eleanor has been unwell lately, and I fear the wedding preparations have been too taxing for her delicate constitution. She seems often distant and cold to the touch, particularly her hands. Mother suggests we postpone the ceremony, but Father insists the business arrangements cannot be delayed." More telling was a letter to his sister from April 28, 1902. "I visited Eleanor yesterday and something seems terribly wrong. During our entire visit she barely moved her left hand, and when I took it in mine, it felt cold as marble. When I mentioned this to Mrs. Ashford, she became quite agitated and insisted Eleanor was merely nervous about the wedding." Charles's correspondence revealed growing concern about Eleanor's condition and increasing pressure from both families to proceed with the marriage despite his misgivings about his fiancée's health. Dr. Jonathan Whitfield's detailed medical records provided crucial insight into Eleanor's condition during the spring of 1902. Whitfield was considered Boston's leading expert in neurological disorders, particularly those affecting young women of the upper classes. His initial examination notes described Eleanor as presenting with intermittent episodes of muscular rigidity, particularly affecting the left side of her body. The condition had begun gradually in late 1901, but had worsened significantly by early 1902. Eleanor reported periods where her left hand would become completely numb and immobile, sometimes for hours at a time. Whitfield, quote,'s diagnosis was hysterical paralysis, a condition commonly attributed to emotional distress in young women of the era. However, his private notes revealed skepticism about this explanation. He wrote, "While the patient's symptoms align with classical descriptions of hysteria, the consistent localization to the left extremities and the severe nature of the cataleptic episodes suggest a more serious underlying neurological condition." Treatment. Records showed Eleanor had received various therapies popular in 1902: electrical stimulation, cold water treatments, and prescribed rest. None had shown lasting improvement. Most concerning were Whitfield's observations about the progression of her symptoms. "The patient's condition appears to be advancing," he noted on March 30, 1902. "Episodes of rigidity are becoming more frequent and prolonged. Most disturbing is the complete loss of sensation and circulation in the affected limb during attacks. The hand becomes pale and cold, resembling more a wax figure than living tissue. Whitfield's final recommendation was for extended hospitalization and experimental treatments being developed at Johns Hopkins University. The Ashford family rejected this advice, citing Eleanor's upcoming wedding and social obligations. Against his professional judgment, Whitfield discharged Eleanor to her family's care with instructions for monitoring and immediate return if symptoms worsened. Harrison Brothers Studio had been Boston's premier portrait photographers since 1890, serving the city's most distinguished families. Their business records, meticulously preserved, provided detailed accounts of every session, including the unusual circumstances surrounding the Ashford family portrait. The original appointment had been scheduled for April 15, 1902, but studio notes indicated the session was postponed at the family's request due to Miss Eleanor's indisposition. 2 subsequent appointments were also canceled before the session finally took place on May 6, 1902. James Harrison, the studio's senior photographer, had left detailed notes about the challenging session. The Ashford family arrived promptly, but Miss Eleanor appeared quite fragile and required frequent rest periods. Most notably, she had difficulty positioning her left hand and requested that it remain in a specific pose throughout the entire session. Harrison's technical notes were equally revealing. The session required multiple exposures because Eleanor had difficulty maintaining her pose. The young lady's left hand seemed to cause her considerable distress. She would place it carefully and then appear afraid to move it, as if any adjustment might cause her pain. Most significant was Harrison's observation about the lighting challenges. Despite our usual professional lighting setup, Miss Eleanor's left hand appeared unusually pale in the viewfinder. We adjusted the lighting multiple times, but the hand continued to appear almost luminous against her dark dress. I assumed this was due to her illness and the natural pallor of her skin. Harrison's final note was prophetic. The resulting portrait captures the family as requested, though I fear future viewers may find Miss Eleanor's appearance somewhat unsettling. The contrast between her animated expression and the lifeless quality of her left hand creates an unfortunate visual effect. Despite the family's determination to proceed with Eleanor's marriage, the wedding scheduled for June 15, 1902, never took place. Boston Society pages from that period provide a carefully worded announcement of the ceremony's postponement due to Miss Eleanor's continued delicate health. Charles Morrison Jr.'s private correspondence revealed the true reasons behind the cancellation. In a letter to his closest friend dated June 10, 1902, he wrote, "I cannot in good conscience proceed with the marriage. Eleanor's condition has deteriorated significantly since our engagement portrait was taken. She suffers from episodes where her entire left side becomes rigid and lifeless. Yesterday, during our visit, her hand remained completely motionless for over an hour, and she seemed unaware when I touched it." Medical records from Massachusetts General Hospital showed Eleanor was readmitted on June 12, 1902, just 3 days before her planned wedding. Dr. Whitfield's notes from this admission painted a grim picture. Patient's condition has advanced considerably. Cataleptic episodes now affect her entire left side and occur multiple times daily. Left hand remains pale and cold, even between episodes. Prognosis is poor. The Morrison family's response to the wedding cancellation was swift and decisive. Charles Morrison Sr. immediately began dissolving the business arrangements that had been predicated on the marriage alliance. Financial records showed significant losses to both families as stock transfers and property deals were unwound. Boston, "as social elite reacted with a mixture of sympathy and speculation." Society columnist Margaret Thornton wrote in the Boston Herald, "The postponement of the Morrison-Ashford wedding has occasioned much comment in our social circles. While official statements cite Miss Eleanor's health, observant members of society had noticed her unusual pallor and subdued demeanor at recent gatherings. The canceled wedding marked the beginning of Eleanor's complete withdrawal from Boston society and the Ashford family's increasing isolation. By late summer 1902, Eleanor's condition had progressed to the point where her family could no longer maintain the fiction of a temporary illness. Dr. Whitfield's consultation with specialists at Johns Hopkins University finally provided a definitive diagnosis that explained both her symptoms and the unsettling appearance of her hand in the family portrait. Eleanor was suffering from a rare neurological condition that would later be known as focal dystonia, specifically affecting her left side. In 1902, the medical understanding of such conditions was extremely limited, and treatments were virtually non-existent. Dr. Harrison Matthews from Johns Hopkins, who had examined Eleanor during a visit to Boston, provided a detailed explanation of her condition in his correspondence with Dr. Whitfield. The patient presents with a progressive neurological disorder characterized by involuntary muscle contractions and eventual loss of motor function. The affected limbs become rigid and lose normal circulation, resulting in the pale, cold appearance that has been observed. Matthews's prognosis was devastating. This condition will continue to progress, likely affecting other parts of the patient's body over time. There is no known cure, and palliative treatments provide only temporary relief. The patient's quality of life will continue to deteriorate. The diagnosis explained the mysterious appearance of Eleanor's hand in the family portrait. During the photography session, she had been experiencing one of her cataleptic episodes. Her left hand had become rigid and lost normal blood circulation, accounting for its unnaturally pale and lifeless appearance in the photograph. Dr. Whitfield's private notes revealed his anguish over the case. Had the family accepted my recommendations for immediate specialized care in March, we might have been able to slow the progression of Miss Eleanor's condition. Their insistence on maintaining social appearances may have cost this young woman her best chance at managing her illness. The photograph, intended to commemorate Eleanor's engagement and social triumph, had instead captured the beginning of her tragic decline. Eleanor's condition continued to deteriorate throughout 1902 and beyond. By Christmas of that year, medical records showed the neurological symptoms had spread to affect her entire left side and were beginning to impact her right hand as well. The Ashford family's response was to retreat from Boston society entirely. They sold their Beacon Hill mansion in early 1903 and moved to a private estate in western Massachusetts, officially citing William's desire to retire from banking. In reality, they were seeking to protect Eleanor from public scrutiny and provide her with the quiet environment her condition required. Private nursing records, discovered in the Massachusetts State Archives, documented Eleanor's daily life during her final years. She required constant care and could no longer perform basic tasks independently. The progressive nature of her condition meant that periods of relative normalcy became increasingly rare. Eleanor's own writings, found among family papers, provided heartbreaking insight into her experience. In a diary entry from February 1903, she wrote, "My hand looks like it belongs to a statue rather than a living person. When I see our family portrait, I remember how hard I tried to hide my symptoms during the photography session. Now I realize how obvious my condition must have been to anyone who looked closely." Charles Morrison Jr. visited Eleanor regularly during her illness, despite their canceled engagement. His letters to friends described these visits as both touching and heartbreaking. Eleanor's mind remains sharp and her spirit brave, but her body continues to betray her. She often jokes that she should have been a marble sculptor, as she has become quite expert at keeping perfectly still. Eleanor Ashford died on November 18, 1905, at the age of 22. Her death certificate listed the cause as complications from progressive neurological disorder. She was buried in a private ceremony attended only by immediate family. The Ashford family portrait, once a symbol of wealth and social prominence, became a medical and historical document of extraordinary significance. Modern neurologists who have examined the photograph and medical records confirm that Eleanor was likely suffering from what would now be diagnosed as focal dystonia, with secondary circulatory complications. Dr. Rebecca Chen of Massachusetts General Hospital's neurology department explained the significance of the case in 2024. This photograph provides remarkable visual documentation of a neurological condition as it was manifesting in real time. Eleanor's pale, rigid hand shows the exact symptoms we would expect to see during a dystonic episode with vascular compromise. The image also serves as a powerful reminder of the limited medical understanding and treatment options available in 1902. Eleanor's condition, which might be managed effectively with modern treatments, was essentially a death sentence in the early 20th century. The Ashford family's attempts to maintain social appearances, despite Eleanor's illness, reflect the pressures and expectations placed on wealthy families during the Gilded Age. The decision to proceed with the family portrait and wedding plans, despite clear signs of Eleanor's deteriorating health, ultimately preserved a haunting record of her struggle. Today, the photograph resides in Harvard Medical School's historical collection, where it serves as both a teaching tool for medical students and a memorial to Eleanor Ashford. The image that once seemed to show a pale, stiff hand in an otherwise normal family portrait is now understood as documentation of a young woman's courageous battle against a devastating neurological condition. Eleanor's story transforms the mysterious photograph from a simple curiosity into a profound human document about illness, family, and the lengths people will go to protect their loved one's dignity, even when facing insurmountable medical challenges in an era before modern neurological medicine.